Good morning, everybody. Yamez here with Highland Metal Forge. How y'all doing this wonderful Sunday? It's a bit gloomy here. I ain't gonna give a full weather report, but we got rain. Um, yeah, today we've got a fun episode planned. Set your calendars back thousands and thousands of years. And yes, hello, Trail Dust in first. We got Shane Lalone, Steve Parsons. How you doing, brother? Paul Orchard, Transcendental Artist Studios. What's up, Alex? Robert Lonis, Bortagov, Jeff Killian, John Burnell. A lot of you guys in. Michael Robertson. What is up, everybody? And Asparagrass. Uh, so, just a quick heads up. I am not feeling so hot, so I am not going to be doing a whole ton of talking. Uh, Sore throat, body aches, all that fun stuff that comes with a cold and cough. With all that, we can go ahead and go into the "How was your week" segment, and kind of discuss what happened throughout the week with each other. Um, who would like to go first? You are muted, Speargrass, and you've got first dibs. Uh, I'll go first. All right. So, um, what's up, Bob? Yeah. So my week, dug another trench this week, and yeah, the job that I was supposed to do on Monday, I was supposed to start a new construction, but the guy wasn't ready for us until this week. He had thought it was this week, and he's coming down, like the general contractor's coming down from New York, all that fun stuff, and he'll be here this Monday, so I get to start a new job. Yay. Um, with that, I don't know, started on me Friday night, Friday evening, started to get that woozy feeling like, oh man, cold's coming on. Ran out to the store, grabbed a whole bunch of vitamin C stuff, airborne, a gallon of, what's that juice they make from oranges? I don't know what it's called. Um, and,
Apple.
yes, apple juice. And, some Alka-Seltzer cold and cough stuff. I love that effervescent stuff. Um, what's up, AA? So yeah, that may or may not affect tonight's show. Combination of stuff. I may just do it in here. We have got a pretty hefty. I don't know if y'all can see that in the thing, but a pretty hefty storm rolling in like now and for the rest of the evening. So yeah, I may do a couch stream tonight. Uh, so yeah, not much going on this week for me, but but work and getting sick. So what about you there, Adam? You're muted, sir.
I've muted myself again there. My mouse is sticky. It's really annoying, and that sounds terrible. But I just bought a new mouse, and it's not broken in yet, so the buttons are sticking. um, what have I gotten up to this week? I have basically done a little bit of yard work. It's still raining here on a regular basis, so every time I plan to do something, it goes sideways. So yeah, this week has been relatively chilled out for me. Built a chook pen, got a few chickens this week in order to make things a little bit more self-sufficient for the homestead. Also noticed that there's a little bit of an egg shortage in the US. So usually what happens over there, even though we don't rely on our eggs from the US, things generally follow here a couple of months later. So getting a bit of a head start on that. What else has been happening? Yeah, basically had a few friends over for a barbecue this afternoon. But yeah, just trying to be keeping low. Like Yamez last week I had had a bit of the flu. So I tried to stay away from people as much as possible. I've still got a little bit of a lingering cough. I've been all good since the start of this week, but that cough is still sickening in my chest, so a little bit phlegmy and stuff like that. But other than that, yeah, no, I've just been chilling out and getting into the research for today's topic, which is really, really exciting. There is a plethora of information out there on Rome in general, and so yeah, basically just been deep diving and getting caught in rabbit holes and whirlpools and some black holes regarding ancient Rome. And apart from that, just been finishing things up. Yeah.
If I may, on that, a real quick one before Alex goes into the week and everything. The rabbit hole that I went down, like I got into it, and I'm like, this is amazing stuff. And then they started talking isotopes, and I'm like, Alex, this one's on you. You can have this one.
And just to let the listening public know, we did actually try to get a special guest this week, a relative compared to us, a relative expert on ancient Rome. Unfortunately, due to their schedule, they weren't able to join us this week. But just to let you know, in future when it comes to topics like this, we might just have a few guests outside of the blacksmithing community that might just join us to weigh in with a little bit more weight than we can provide on these topics. And the person, unfortunately, the person that had lined up had a really, really good take on some of the information that we'll be providing today. So yeah, it was unfortunately that's happened, but it is what it is, and it was a good sign because they responded positively to us reaching out, and unfortunately things just didn't line up, but it shows good vibes going forward.
Would it be inappropriate for us to name drop that channel so that they can, listeners can check them out?
Yeah, I was actually going to suggest to link their channel in the chat there, because if anybody out there is interested in a little bit deeper dive than we can provide, that channel is absolutely fascinating.
Yes, and if ever his schedule were to clear up and he were to join us into some other historical forays into this, the way I look at that is it's nice to have, like, we look at it from a blacksmith's perspective. It would be nice to have a true historian perspective, and also get them to start thinking about from a blacksmith speculative perspective. Kind of thing. That interchangeability. Sorry, all of that went off the rails. It's we do care about what you did this week, Alex. Please let us know.
No, apparently you don't. So
yes, we do. We love you.
And go home. Oh wait, I am home. All right, so yeah, my week work was pretty mild. Just had a couple of days. This is my off week of the month, so yeah, Thursday I came home. Well, anyways, Tuesday had okay. The relationship is hard to define, but
I lost
what?
Your audio cut out for a second.
Oh, okay. Well, that's weird. Anyways, a buddy of mine called and says, "Hey, I got 6 hogs. When are you gonna be home?" And I was like, "Thursday." And anyways, long story short of finagling, I got somebody out there to field dress them and all that. And I got home Thursday. They were in the walk-in cooler. Picked them up on Friday afternoon, and then processed them. And well, to the point where, I mean, they're on ice right now. And after the show, I get to go divvy everything up into like sausage and and whatnot. So that was fun. And I realized I don't miss that from when I was a kid. I mean, I can do that stuff if I have to, but I don't really have to. But anyway, in any case, I got like, I don't know, 60, 75 pounds of meat. So gonna get it all divvied up and put in the freezer so that when my sausage seasoning comes in and my grinder comes in, I can grind it all into sausage. And then I'm also gonna brine hams and whatnot. So I got that going on, and I think that's about it. That's my week in a nutshell. I went last night to Abilene to go take my kids roller skating, and then on the way there, that kind of got the kibosh put on it. So we wound up going to a burger joint, and then a local band from down here where I live happened to be there at that burger joint playing that night. So we watched them for a little bit. 12 Miles, what they're called, and then came home and I watched. In order to get a little bit of a deeper understanding into Rome, I watched John Wick 2 last night. So
I watched Life with
and,
Brian.
and if you can recall, John Wick 2 took place primarily in Rome. So that was my week.
I would like to take a quick moment and say I apologize. You did not cut out. When I picked up my phone to search up that YouTube channel to pull a link, it moved my audio to the phone, and you were muted for me, not for the show. So, my bad.
Oh, one other thing. Yeah, this is really exciting. Let me. So it's not really exciting, but I got a hair clip on my finger there.
Oh, we're all coughing today.
Yeah. Oh, well, it looks like we might have lost Sully.
Yep, coughing fit. All right, yeah. So wait for.
Wrong. Oh, hold on.
Yep, take your time.
Take the wrong button. Oh. Anyway, that honey just hit wrong. Anyways, I got a hair clip on the finger, and I mean, like if you have acrylic nails, every now and then you can hit one just right, and it'll break or pop off or something like that. I did one better. I was cooking dinner Thursday night, and I went to open the oven door, and I got a gas stove, and right behind the handle are slots, like vent slots in the door. And I went to grab it, and my pinky nail went inside one of those slots, and I didn't notice. I mean, like just all in one motion. I pulled the door
arms.
Open. Yeah. Just whoosh, and like the acrylic nail came off, and it took the pinky nail with it. I mean, my real nail, and so it's just connected at the very back, and so and I had it wrapped up in like tape stuff or whatever, because I mean it hurts, and hitting it on stuff. And then this morning while I was in the shower, I was like, oh man, this hurt. And then I was like, hey, this works, and it's hard. I can't hit the nail on anything, so for the time being, that's how I'm keeping myself from jabbing it on anything and having it lift up. 10 out of 10, I would not recommend.
Gosh.
Understandable. I wouldn't want to do that either. Oh, just makes me. It gives me the heebie-jeebies just thinking of it.
Right. All right. So.
I can totally understand that, like movie torture, where they grab a pair of pliers and start pulling out somebody's fingernails.
Oh yeah.
That's what it's reminding me of, and I've been through that. So, not like sitting tied to a chair, somebody ripping, not that, but losing fingernails and stuff, in construction. So yeah, new topic.
Clean cups.
All right.
Alrighty. So, is there anything interesting in the chat before we move on to today's topic?
They're just calling us the diseased Smiths and that we're unclean and everything. And apparently Bobs are taking over. And yes, Bortagov, Sully is live from the Colosseum. Alex is actually in Rome right now.
I was live from the Coliseum, but I had to leave, and I'm sitting on top of St. Peter's Cathedral right now in Vatican City.
Yeah. Yes. So
That's it.
we are traveled.
This is actually a picture that I took in 1995 from the top of St. Peter's Cathedral, and the
Wow.
other one that was just on there was a montage from the Coliseum I took on the same trip. And then I have one other one that's the only picture of me in Rome. I'll go ahead and put that one on there right now. Change video background to that one.
And we're bringing this up because today we are talking about a couple weeks ago we discussed the rise of the Roman Empire, and our time frame in general was what was it, like 700 BCE to 1 BC?
Yeah, to 100.
To
100 BC.
So today we're talking about the middle of the Roman Empire towards the fall of the Roman Empire. And yeah.
So yeah, anyways,
fascinating stuff.
This is the only picture of me that I took in Rome, or that I had somebody take, because I was behind the camera for the rest of them. And
right.
It's actually, the Coliseum is actually a lot smaller than you think it is. I mean, on TV and whatnot, it looks huge, but when you get there, you're like, man, I could literally throw a rock from this side and hit the other side. I mean, it really is not that big, but
yeah,
that's yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, most modern football stadiums are based on the Colosseum, but the Colosseum was a lot smaller than most modern football stadiums.
Yeah,
and I use that as American and soccer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But so to jump straight into today's topic, we're talking the fall of Rome. So the period that this covers, of course, is not just it basically from the peak of Rome. We in last fortnight's episode, we talked about the rise of Rome up until the end of the Republic of Rome. And so in 100 BC, we're talking the end of what we classically know as the Republic of Rome, where it was still run by the senators that were elected by the citizens of Rome, right? And then around 44 BC, we get, after a fair few battles and a couple of wars, we get Rome's first emperor, Julius Caesar. Now, of course, Julius Caesar actually instigated a lot of changes that we know of today. First of all, was the month of July is named after Julius Caesar. Also, it was during the reign of Julius Caesar that they discovered and implemented the 365 and 1/4 or thereabouts day year. So it was during the reign of Julius Caesar. They actually rolled back advanced the calendar by several months in order to make sure that it actually the calendar lined up with where they were supposed to be according to their astrological calculations. Because, of course, as we know nowadays, an actual solar year is 365 and 0.25 or 0.24 something days, which is why we get every 4 years we have that leap day in order to bring us back into alignment for a solar year. So this was first instigated with Julius during the reign of Julius Caesar. And then from there, we start moving into the classic Roman Empire. During that time, of course, the Romans moved into Britain. They invaded and took a lot of space, particularly during the first 200 years of the new millennium, being from 1 AD onwards. Basically kept that expansion up for a couple of hundred years. Now, during that time, there were a lot of advancements in in Roman technology. It's about the time we start moving into the heyday of Roman roads, Roman concrete. We start moving into a form of industrialization when it comes to food production. We're moving into trip hammers. There evidence of industrial flour making with the use of water mills and trip hammers, using trip hammers in mining, and basically during this period of time is where what we know as the classical period of Rome. It is the golden age of Rome. It's when everything's happening, and Rome is just moving forward at leaps and bounds. Now, it's also about this time that Romans discovered the power of steam. Now, in the imperial Roman Empire, the Rome, of course, the political capital was located in Rome for the most part, until we start looking at towards the end of the Roman Empire, towards the collapse. And there was two main seats of intellectual power, and one was Alexandria in northern Egypt. That was later on, but earlier on it was Constantinople, what's now known as Istanbul. So basically, that's where a lot of the thinkers, if they weren't in Rome, they were in Constantinople. It's also part of the reason why later on, Constantinople actually became the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, which eventually turned into the Byzantine Empire. But going forth, there was thinkers. I can't remember his exact name. Unfortunately, it's not. I didn't write it down in my notes, my show notes. But there was a very well-known classical Greek thinker that was, of course, Greeks were also part of the Roman Empire by this stage, who had discovered the steam engine. And I know it's sacrilege. I don't remember it because the steam engine is actually named after this Greek scientist. But he didn't consider it anything more than a toy. But it basically it was a ball with two copper pipes that went up to a ball that had two to four copper pipes opposing off it, and once the water was heated, the steam came out and turned around. Now this was basically something similar had happened in the European Industrial Revolution hundreds of years later. The only difference is there we go. The only difference is that the Europeans, took hold and supported the steam power, whereas again, this invention was around 100. I think it was 150 AD. The uptake of the steam power capability was only ever seen as a toy, something to be enjoyed by children, or as a party trick or whatnot, and they didn't really understand or comprehend at that time the potential power that had. However, there is a certain amount of evidence, particularly with the use of trip hammers in mining, that and as we discussed the other week, industrial scale mining of metals and minerals was happening. So, of course, gold, silver, tin, copper, and iron was happening all over the Mediterranean and the Roman Empire, in order to not only trade with other empires throughout, or other kingdoms and stuff like that throughout the region, but also to equip and supply their own citizens and soldiers. Now, as we start to move towards probably about 250 to 300 AD, that's when we start looking towards the fall of the Roman Empire. Now, there's a lot of reasons that are theorized for the fall of the Roman Empire. However, it's generally accepted that the main small group of reasons the invasion of the barbarians, particularly the Visigoths, through the northern through the Roman Empire, who eventually actually sacked Rome. Lead poisoning, because as we discussed the other week, lead was used in their pipes and stuff like that, and also in the aqueducts in order to assist. There was some sort of collapse in their economics, and also, and this might upset a few people, but also the rise of Christianity is also included into the one of the main contributing factors for the fall of Rome. Now, the reason why I say some people might disagree with one, this one's a little bit contentious, is because during the start of the collapse of the Roman Empire, it was pagan. A lot of the towards the later, 350s, 400s, in a period of about 100 to 150 years, the rulers of Rome went from being pagan to being Christian, and actually outright banned and persecuted a lot of their, even though the early Roman, when it was in that changeover period, there was Roman emperors went, okay, we understand Christianity's here, and they allowed it, particularly, particularly with Pontius Pilate, and then and we know he actively persecuted the Jews and stuff like that. And then as we get towards the later part of the Roman Empire, the reverse was true. So it got to the point where Christians started persecuting non-Christian citizens of the Roman Empire across the board, and particularly a lot of the stately buildings and temples and stuff like that in Rome were sacked, not by the Visigoths, but by Roman citizens themselves. And during that period, even though Rome was by then that stage split into Western and Eastern empires, that it was considered a contributing factor because of the inner turmoil of the citizens turning on each other during that period. But that's not to say that that was the only thing. So, of course, the common date for the fall of the Roman Empire is 476, but that actually specifically refers to the Western Roman Empire of course, Italy and Europe. Okay, the Eastern Roman Empire actually continued for another 1,000 years up into the 1500s. However, we do classically term the fall of the Western Roman Empire as falling into what we call the Dark Ages. So yeah, I could see comments in the chat about that joke we made the other weekend on the life of Brian about Romans go home. But yeah, so basically that is an overview of the fall of the Roman Empire. Of course, that's a very, very hard condensed a brief outline of what happened. There were a lot of you've got to remember this was a period of 500 odd years, and things changed. The Roman Empire existed for over 1,000 years. So with a peak comes a fall, and there were a lot of contributing factors. And luckily, the Romans being so meticulous in recording anything, we do actually know a lot more about what happened in ancient Rome, because we still have access to, or we had access to, a lot of the documents and a lot of the taxes and stuff like that happened during that time. Now, we also, because of that, the Roman capital during that period was moved from Rome to Constantinople or Istanbul now, until, of course, like I said, about the 1450s, and that fell with the rise of an invasion of the Ottoman Empire. So Rome, fell to Christianity and to Islam, but half and half, nice even split there, but during that time, particularly when Constantinople was the major intellectual center of the Roman Empire, there are a lot of things that basically we take for granted in the modern day. We discussed it the other week in regards to, you know, the medical capabilities of the Romans with their plastic surgery and stuff like that. But there were a lot of advancements at the time made in Constantinople. But yeah, so basically, like I said, that's a quick rundown of the history and the collapse of the Roman Empire. It was a collapse as much of a fall, and but if for a deeper dive, guys, I do highly recommend going back, scrolling back up and clicking on that link for Moianus for their video, Sebastian's video on their videos on ancient Rome. They are he's got many videos on it, and they are absolutely fascinating. Sometimes he talks about the period, sometimes he talks about weapons, sometimes he talks about particular Roman emperors and the particular Roman generals and stuff like that. And I got lost. I've been lost the last 2 weeks going into his videos. Because they're absolutely spectacular and very, very, not only very well researched, they're very visually entertaining as well.
Yeah.
And from there, I'll hand it over to Sully to talk about some isotopes.
I will say, my non-professional opinion about the fall of Rome, considering what you just talked about and what I know that Alex is about to talk about, I believe that the fall of Rome was because of lead. Lead poisoning.
All right. Well, I can counter to that. So, so it is. There was a theory put forth some years ago. I want to say 2007 or whatever, that a large part of the fall of Rome had to do with the amount of lead that they were consuming, and they were consuming these massive amounts of lead because of leaching from because the pipes were made of lead, and so it was definitely getting into it, and it was basically in everything. I mean, there was lead in the copper because the bowls would be made out of copper, and there would be lead in that because they couldn't really remove it effectively anyhow. But during the excavation of Pompeii, which was buried by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 A.D., they were able to get biological samples from inside some of the human casts and whatnot, and able to analyze via mass spec not only the you can extrapolate how much and Adam, now I've got that fly.
We've been being plagued by a fly today.
You can extrapolate the amount of lead that was in the body by taking a sample, and it's now generally believed that while they did have higher levels of lead in their bodies than by quite a bit than what we would find acceptable today, it was not enough to cause cognitive decline or motor decline in motor function. So while they were, in essence, kind of being slowly poisoned by lead, it would not have affected them noticeably before their death of other natural causes, because people didn't typically live long enough for that to be an issue. Obviously, there are exceptions, but for the most part, Pompeii was buried in the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 CE. And it's the same eruption that we mentioned a fortnight ago in our first episode of this, where Pliny the Elder was killed. He was killed in the eruption of Vesuvius in 79. And I don't know if he was in Pompeii or Herculaneum. I'm never going to be able to say that right. But however, but all of his work was published like a year later by his son Pliny the Younger. Where was I? All of the okay, so Pompeii gives us a very interesting look, a snapshot of Roman life in the first century CE, because people didn't typically when an ancient city, you find the stuff that they threw away, the stuff that they left, the stuff that wasn't important, because people packed up and left for the most part, and so you don't really find
Useful
just
stuff.
useful stuff, the everyday items. Pompeii is an exception because Vesuvius went up, and in a matter of hours, I mean, everybody just kind of went inside to hide from the ash, and then wound up being stuck there because they were buried under 13 to 20 feet of volcanic ash, about 4 to 6 meters. And that happened relatively quickly, from what we could tell, because I mean there were so many. I mean, like the animals. There's the animals are there. The mules, the dogs, the humans, the children. I mean, like they're all there, like like huddled up together.
Food and
Trying
dishes
to
and stuff.
food still in dishes and everything, and they're all just trying to wait out this eruption, not knowing that this was severe enough that it was going to completely bury the city. It gives it's a very unique city in the aspect that everything was just frozen in time. And it's the excavation of Pompeii started about 250 years ago when it was discovered, and it still continues today. It's the single most well preserved archaeological site in the world. Um, so what Pompeii also gives us, because all of the water pipes are intact, the valves are intact. I mean, like they had bronze valves
Yeah.
for controlling the water in the pipes. Shut the water off here, turn the water on there, and so they had pipes made of lead, they had valves made of bronze, and
They had
because of this, and because this stuff was all preserved and still there, and it wasn't like sacked and used in something else and recycled for other materials, because it's all still there, we're able to isotopically fingerprint the metal and tell where it came from. And if you can bring up the picture of the little map of the isotopes of lead and where they came from. Well, it's not necessarily the isotopes, but it's the fingerprint kind of thing, and you can see where everything was at. So what they were able to find was that the lead in Pompeii, and I'm just using Pompeii as an evidence, or as an example, because it's really all it's the best evidence we have of ancient Roman life. And the lead in Pompeii came from all over the Roman Empire. And I mean, like there were some pieces that came from here. There were some pieces that came from there. This bronze valve had lead in it that came from there, et cetera, et cetera. And in a lot of cases, these different isotopes of lead, because lead has isotopes 204, 206, 207, and 208. 204 is now extinct. There is no lead 204 currently, but lead, because lead 204 decays really, really quickly, like something like 6 days or something like that. But
if I may, real quick, Alex, for those of you who are listening later or watching right now and would like a clearer picture, they are posted in the topic of the week section on the Forge Chat Discord. So you can pull it up on your own screen and follow along. Sorry.
Yeah, quite all right. And I'm going to do the same, I think, so I can look at it. I think I'm in the wrong chat. Topic of the week. There we are. There we are. Yeah. And
Sorry.
so it shows that, yeah, like it says here, a metal from Pompeii pipes come from all over the Mediterranean, and shows significant recycling, because the different isotopes were mixed in, like like the same pipe would have lead from here, lead from there, lead from France, Spain, Greece, wherever. And so they're able to fingerprint it that way. Just because the like say the lead from Austria would be primary, it would have an amount of this isotope, an amount of that isotope that's very specific, and that is still true today. So let me see, and so they can do that with each region, and so you can basically you can find a piece of metal that's not pure elemental, and figure out where it came from. And you can do the same thing with, like, that's how they know where, like, the rocks in certain ancient structures, that's how they can tell where they were mined from or quarried from, is because they have a particular isotopic fingerprint. Even if that quarry is no longer there and has been covered up, the rocks in that area still have that same isotopic fingerprint. Now on the other,
Is it also true that the lead found in the bodies has that same ability, so they could tell where the water itself came from, or what networks the pipes went through?
That's correct. You can tell the lead in the bodies. With that you can tell where these people lived basically because the isotopic signature of that lead will match the lead in the pipes in that area, and whatnot. And that actually the eruption of Pompeii actually had a very serious disruption in the eruption of Pompeii. The eruption of Vesuvius in '79 had such a severe impact on the Roman water system that they completely redesigned their water distribution system after that, because it, like, apparently it, everything came through Pompeii at some point, and then when that happened, the southern part of Rome did not have as plentiful access to water, so they redesigned the aqueduct system so that it was more localized and less of one complete integrated system with a beginning and an end. It's now it then became a bunch of independent systems that also interlinked. So if one system went down, that it could draw water from another one, et cetera, which was you know obviously they couldn't have predicted Vesuvius was a volcano and it would erupt and stop everybody from getting water. But they figured out, well, just in case this happens again, let's not do this. So on the gray picture there, it kind of shows the evolution of the discovery of metal, like copper being the first metal to be worked, which is up there about 11,000 years ago, and then what next was gold and silver. And right about in the middle of gold and silver, about 9,000 years ago, 8,000 years ago, was when we were first. There's first evidence of active metal extraction. That's when there's evidence of humans first extracting metal from a different source, not just picking up native metal on the ground or whatever, but actually extracting it, like with heat or a furnace or something like that. So 8,000 years ago. With gold, silver, and lead. And then, over the next, about 4,000 years comes arsenic, antimony, tin, zinc, iron, nickel, mercury, and platinum being the last metal to be discovered in ancient time. And the next one wasn't until cobalt in 1735. And then you can see in this list of the yellow dots are all like pinpointed historical dates of the discovery of the metal, and you can see kind of how fast. As soon as we figured out their cobalt was there, I mean, the rest of them came in pretty quick succession. Even all the way up to the lanthanide series that were just recently given names, maybe a decade ago or so. Because I remember when I was in high school, they were like unilhexium, unilseptium, uniloctium, unilnonium, like that, because they didn't even have names yet. Which they became, Einsteinium, fermium, I can't read that one. but anyways, they were all named after prominent scientists that had passed. And in any case, that the only other thing I got really is the first picture that Yamaz put up there was the
my
sign.
favorite.
Yes, this is absolutely fascinating. This is a sign from a coppersmith's shop
in Pompeii.
Yes, this is actually on the front of the building. The anvil you see on the right there, the anvil block was the anvil. It was an iron anvil that was inside the shop, along with the hammer and other various tools, because they were all still there. There were several smithies actually excavated in Pompeii. With all of the tooling still there, because I mean, the people didn't go anywhere. They just kind of hung out, and they're like, oh, let's just let this pass. So this sign shows an interesting, has an interesting kind of story. If you look at it starting from, let's say, the upper right, and we'll go counterclockwise around. In the upper right, you've got it shows a shelf with like bowls and plates and stuff like that. So this is the kind of stuff you would purchase at this establishment.
It's like a display
and
shop.
then, the display of these are the wares that you find here. And then you move across over to the left, and there's a scale, and there's a guy that's weighing out the metal, right? And then he's got a little kid like tugging on his tunic there, like, hey, give me some of that or whatever. I don't know. And then you got a guy you got a guy that's holding the piece of a piece of metal on the anvil, which is pictured at the right, and a striker with the iron hammer sitting there working it. And then over to the right again is hold on, Austin, quit. Over on the right is a guy working on a bowl. He's planishing or finishing out a bowl,
Doing the finishing
and doing the fine, the more fine detail. Even so much doing it sitting down, and I mean it's a very accurate representation in stone of what this would have looked like. Although I doubt it would have all been quite so close together. And then just for the heck of it, there's a dog hanging out in the background, just kind of. I found this completely fascinating because it tells such a story of what's going on inside this building on a daily basis.
Yeah, and it's marketing.
Right, and they're basically they're making the wares for in this shop. They're making the wares for everyday use. Your plates, your bowls, your silverware. Maybe some copper or bronze tooling if you're doing light work or leather work or something like that. Very, very interesting stuff there.
If I may, on this picture, because I've had a few thoughts on this picture too, as being my favorite picture of our research, and I just had a thought just now. On a marketing standpoint, you have this, the several different smiths throughout the city, and like marketing. Okay, why should you come to my shop? Well, we're a family shop. Here's what we have. This is my wife and my kid. It's a family run business, and this is my, blah blah blah. And I see it as, Roy, Jess, their kids, Thomas, and then Roy doing the finish work again. Oh, and by the way, we've got a dog. We're family friendly. You should shop here. So it's amazing, and then it's just an amazing snapshot within a snapshot of a frozen city, frozen in time, not literally like ice cold frozen city. Sorry, that's just my take on it. How
no. Now, so the question comes about and is like, so why do we what's important about the archaeological study of metal? Well, the answer to that is it kind of gives a clear path of the evolution of technology across the ages. I mean, obviously, copper age to bronze age to iron age, which and when you think of these things, you often think of this starts here and ends here, and then this one starts and the next one, and it doesn't really go like that. There's in looking into this, the overlap in the ages is hundreds of years. The start of the Iron Age starts hundreds of years before the end of the Bronze Age. It's a gradual shift across this stuff. But so with the clear path of evolution of technology, it shows how we've advanced over the ages. It also shows the effects on the environment by humans. If you can remember, we were talking about that mountain in Spain 2 weeks ago that was completely gone because they just hydraulically mined the whole thing down. That is a very environmentally impactful thing. Now, another point on this is there's a site that was discovered with satellite imagery for the first time a couple decades ago. That was it's not what's that? Dang it! It begins with an O. Shoot, I can't remember. Anyways, there was, with satellite imagery, they found 200,000 tons, right? 200,000 tons or 200,000 tons, 2,000 tons, 200,000 tons, that's what it was, of copper slag. It's the second largest copper processing facility from the ancient world that's ever been found. And that's just the slag, mind you. Which is, the junk come off the top. And the fuel that they would have used to process this would have been charcoal. And so, as you can imagine, the charcoal required to process enough copper to produce 200,000 tons of slag. And don't get me wrong, this was probably over a couple centuries. This wasn't, like a 10-year thing. that is a massive amount of deforestation. That is a massive amount of charcoal being wood being carburized into charcoal. All of that off gassing just going out up into the air. So the air quality at the time would not have been that great. In fact, in the people in archaeological like things, you can tell how you can pinpoint these things because of the contaminants in the remains, like high instances of lead in the air, high instances of copper in the air, and it all like sticks in the bones and whatnot. So that was, I found that to be fairly interesting. Is that yeah. Anyways, I lost my train of thought on that, but also the study of ancient metal. It shows the ancient trade routes. Much like that picture we were showing earlier, where it shows the lead in Pompeii came from all over the Roman Empire, and we can tell where this came from, where that came from, like the high end gold jewelry that would have been worn by the elite of Pompeii, and Pompeii was a very wealthy city. So there were people there were not typically lower class. I mean, everybody there was doing fairly well at the time of the eruption, anyways. But most of the gold they determined came from Egypt, which I found to be kind of fascinating. And they had, I mean, they had glass work. They had, glass blowers. So they had glass and gold and silver. I mean, everything you can think of. And so, and we know a lot of this. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself in my head, and I'm tripping over my own thoughts. And so we
There's a
know
lot
all
to
of
it.
this. We know a lot of this, like where the trade routes were, where the mines were, and how society interacted with each other because of the isotopes of lead. In this particular case, where I'm talking about, isotopes of metal in ancient Rome, and lead is the fingerprint by which we can determine all of the interaction, not all of, but a lot of the interactions of people throughout the ancient civilizations. So yeah, that's what I got on that. And as far as the actual historical stuff. And then our next area would be the speculation part. So, Adam, would you like to kick off our what if section?
I will. So this is the part that got us really, really excited about ancient Rome. It's been speculated and postulated by some historians and scientists out there that Rome was within 300 to 400 years from an industrial revolution. Now, I say within that time frame because they had already had some advanced technologies, and I do advanced in inverted commas, advanced technology. They had a very thorough understanding of iron. Basically, they had the same type of technological understanding of iron and other things as the 15th and 16th century Europeans did, which was very exciting. But that's just on the iron. In certain other things, they were actually they were arguably more advanced. Now, for example, the best two I can think of is the Lycurgus cup. Right now, Lycurgus cup is a 4th century Roman glass cage cup made of dichroic glass, which shows a different color depending on whether light or is passing through it or not. It was red when it was lit from behind and green when lit from the front. Now, they've done tests on this dichroic glass, and it contains nanoparticles of silver, and I'm not sure if the other one was gold, but it contains and it is exquisitely carved. Now, there's also another legend of a flexible glass, which is actually made with boric acid. A boric acid composite or addition into the glass that actually made the glass flexible. Now, it's something that we are attempting to recreate today. But the story goes that the inventor of this, the glass blower that invented this glass, took it to the emperor at the time, and the emperor had them killed. Now, because of economic reasons, and they also thought, if the recipe for this glass got out, it could ruin things. So, and in addition to that, of course, we know the technology that the Romans had regarding their medical technology and a lot of other things. So with that, the thing that held back Rome when it came to the Industrial Revolution, of course, was particularly towards the end, the scientific and curious thinkers were lacking across the Roman Empire. They had stagnated in what Rome was known for their not only their conquest but their innovative thinking. They had towards the end of the Roman Empire, they had stagnated in that way. Now, like I said, it's speculated that they would win 300 to 400 years of Industrial Revolution, because if they had have survived longer and had that innovative minds around, they knew how to make steel accidentally, or not, maybe not so much accidentally, but they weren't making it in the quantities that were generally accepted to be needed for an industrial revolution, and the same as the refining of iron. So they weren't able to produce a standard type of iron, which Western Europe ended up doing, which helped kickstart the Industrial Revolution. Part of the reason why it also never happened is, of course, political and financial, and also labor reasons. The Roman Empire was still heavily involved with slavery, whereas the another reason why a lot of Europeans industrialized was because labor saving towards the start of the Industrial Revolution. There was no slavery in the UK, and slavery was becoming looked down upon throughout most of Western Europe. So the Romans didn't have that reason to industrialize either. But moving into a more theoretical situation, and this is where I really got excited with this when the idea first came across, because if we look at the Roman Empire and how comparatively advanced they were, and if they were only 300 odd years away from Industrial Revolution, that means that by this, they would have discovered, we saw that graph before of all the other types of metals that were discovered, once the Industrial Revolution started in Western society. Had that happened around the 450 BC, or let's say 900 BC, and give it that 300 odd years, then the whole world would look entirely different. We would now be 1,000 years into industrialized, computerized age.
Yeah.
We would be 1,000 years more advanced than where we are now. And I find that exciting because we started traveling we discovered aluminium, titanium, and some of those, platinum and all that type of thing, and started developing electronics. Electricity was developed 150 years odd after the start of the Industrial Revolution, and within 200 years of the Industrial Revolution we had traveled to the moon. So it is plausible that had the the Romans had an industrial revolution, that we would have reached the moon by 1100 AD. That is 1,000 years before now, which is absolutely mind-boggling. And it's like, where could we have been by now if we had have industrialized back then? I have a firm belief, particularly with the way that technology advances, that we would most likely be a self-sustaining civilization on Earth and Mars, if not a couple of Jupiter's planets, and particularly because a lot of our planets are named for Greek gods, and a lot of the moons are named for supporting and equivalent supporting characters in the Greek mythology, that particularly if around 1100, accepting Christianity and stuff like that, had that industrial revolution happened, the Romans would have been really pushed to explore those moons and explore those planets, because they were, it would have been that link to traveling to meet the home of the gods. And I mean, we know a lot about Mars being barren and red, and it's named after the Roman god of war. And they would have, that them arriving on Mars and seeing just how bleak, and and if you look at it from if you look at sideways and squint, you could imagine it being a hell, and a place where war, like, that was ravished by war. And so that's exciting to me. It's like, what could we have done with metals and because metals and blacksmithing and technology had the Romans actually continued on and got, because like I said, they knew how to make steel like the Japanese and like the the Scandinavians and all that type of thing. They knew how to make steel. They just didn't know how to make it in quantity to the way we do nowadays, they didn't know how to refine iron as easily through the puddling process. And that's just a matter of, had someone had that that idea before the collapse of the Roman Empire. They had the ability to make steam and steam engine, of course, which powered the Industrial Revolution across the world, in terms of boats, in the terms of locomotives, in the terms of engines that powered things, which they'd already knew the power of charcoal and stuff like that. So anyway, I will stop for the moment and give someone else a chance to talk.
Well, just imagine. I mean, look at once the discovery of cobalt came into play, like Alex had talked about. It was very quick. It was a very quick succession of discoveries, and with discoveries come the discoveries of usage. So I have a theory, and I've kind of always had this theory, and I'm sure it's been discussed to death, because just like ancient Egypt and such, the Roman Empire has been studied, ad infinitum. It's been studied ridiculously, and it's like you bring up the Roman Empire having had slaves and this and that, and their goal was making life in their time easier. And it seems to me that when you look at the rise and fall of Rome, is they reached a point where they didn't need to innovate anymore. They didn't need to push anymore, because what they had was, it made them comfortable. So they weren't forced to improve. Had they still had that drive to improve, is what we're discussing as speculative history. Had they continued that drive to improve, and that drive to take something that, this steam engine, it's a novel idea, but it doesn't have any real world applications. Why do I need to build this when I can have slaves do this? Had they continued to say, I'm not comfortable, I would like to improve the lives of this, that is what we're talking about. That is where we go. Had they kept innovating, they may have found, all these things that made the Industrial Revolution a little bit easier. They would have found them thousands of years earlier, and put us on the path to what even to us now would be considered an advanced civilization. We could have, colonies out in the stars, and flying cars, and that true Atlantean lifestyle. I'm getting the side eye from Adam. But I threw that in as a joke. But you know what I mean? It's like, and that's where we're going. Is it's like, had and through our research, it's like one of the things that we notice is metallurgy. It's kind of a correlation of technology as well. Going on that graph that we had shared. Once the discovery of cobalt, discoveries and their usage was like rapid fire, boom, 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 boom. You know, so had that happened earlier, had the Roman Empire not slacked off on their innovations, you know, that would have happened. What time frame did you guys say? 1100 AD?
Within by 1100 odd AD. Now I can see Sully wants to say something before, but before that happens, I just want to address Smart Pecker's comment that Romans weren't great innovators; they were collectors of style inventions. Yes and no. The reason why I say yes and no is because they did collect and improve on a lot of innovations from a lot of societies. However, 3 innovations and inventions that the Romans came up with that I can think of off the top of my head are Roman concrete, Roman roads, and aqueducts. Before the Romans, they had, and I do mean the high aqueducts, that span valleys and stuff like that. Prior to the Romans, they had never existed before in the and they've never existed at all. The Roman roads helped improve communication and transport for their armies. That's the reason why they had such broad
reach.
Reach. Roman concrete. There are no other structures in the world from the time that weren't Roman made out of have been made out of concrete, and even modern day concrete just doesn't compare. And aqueducts improved the lives in the cities and allowed Rome to build the biggest cities of the time. There were no other cities except maybe in China, but then again they had a different sort of water system set up. So particularly in the Western world, Rome had the biggest cities. So they're inventions I can think of off the top of my head. So but and I can so I'll let you go, Sully, because I just wanted to tap that.
Yeah, no, I'm sitting here. I'm like, come on, you're killing me. So I'm going to start with the Heroes Aleopile. That's the steam engine that Adam alluded to earlier in the episode. So it's also called a Heroes engine. It's a simple bladeless radial steam turbine which spins when the central water container is heated. All right. So I put up a picture, a drawing of one in the topic of the week thing. It's very simple, and like Adam said, if they had realized that the torque created from this had a practical use, things could have gone in a completely different direction. Now, let's assume for a minute that they did. Let's assume that they looked at this and went, "Wait a minute! If I tie a string to this, it'll lift a weight. Wait, if I make this bigger," and and you can see how this invention could be redesigned, and other people will see it and they'll be like, "Wait, but what if we did this?" And in a matter of a couple decades, this thing goes from being a simple toy, a ball with a couple nozzles on it, to being a steam engine on par with a locomotive steam engine of the industrial era. And so hold on just a second. Dang it. Where's my mute button? Hey, Austin, turn that
You're not muted. You're not muted. You're not muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I got a grandkid over here watching YouTube all loud and jumping on the couch and screaming. So I'm not sure if that was coming through or not, but I could hear it in my headphones.
It came through.
Yeah. In any case, so if they had realized this, I mean, I think it would have kicked off an industrial revolution a lot sooner. I mean, like 2,000 years before it did. Now, what does that mean? Well, I mean, that means that they would not have just kind of gone away. They would. I think they would have continued to innovate, and now we can do this, and it would have driven the discovery of the other metals a lot sooner than they were. I mean, the fall of the Roman Empire kind of led into the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, all of that stuff, and none of that would have happened. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, the Wright Flyer in 1903, in December 17th, 1903, the Wright Flyer flew 120 feet. All right. That's it.
Just down the road from me.
120 feet. We drove by it when I came to visit, and so 120 feet of self-powered, heavier than air machine, right? And that was a big deal. 44 years later was the first supersonic flight. 66 years after that first 120-foot flight, we landed on the moon. So 66 years from the time we
Of a
first
wooden
had our
plane.
a wooden plane powered itself off the ground to the time we put a human on the moon was only 66 years. The innovation that happened, the technology development that happened in that 66 years is almost unimaginable. If you just think
It's rapid
about that.
fire.
I mean, we look at it because that's our history, and we're just like, well, that's the way it is. Well, if you think about the rest of human history, I mean, the Roman Empire existed for part near 1,000 years, and they were this close to an industrial revolution. And if they had, and I agree with Adam, if they had realized the power of the Aleopile, I do believe we would be considered a class 1 civilization at this point. With like basically instead of having countries, we would have world governments or planetary governments. Like the quote unquote government of Earth, the government of Mars, or maybe Titan, or even the Jovian moons, Io or Europa. I mean, so there's all of these places that we could be now if we had a two millennia head start. Go ahead.
I was going to say, here's something that will spin everyone out in the sense of, okay, so 1903 we had the first flight. 1886 is what was recognized as the first car, the first automobile. So within 100 years, we've gone from horse and cart to landing on the moon.
And what we're saying is, imagine that the Romans
1,000 years ago.
imagine the Romans, over 1,000 years ago, because it is 2023. It's not 1706 or anything. Over 1,000 years, over almost 2,000 years ago.
Giving
2 millennia.
Giving allowance for the fall of the Roman Empire, like that's why I said I overestimated went to 900 AD was when equivalent to the start of the 1700s industrial revolution. I left it a little bit late. It could have been earlier.
Jack brings up a good point.
I'm just using a rough estimate because, like, Hero, the guy that invented that steam engine, he was 285 to 222 BCE. No, wait, no, never mind. That's the wrong guy I'm looking at there. When was that? 3 to 20 BC. Anyways,
really.
Anyways, so it's basically about 2,000 years. I'm not going on the exact date, but. It's basically 1800 to 22. So in that time frame, that we would have had a 10 orders of magnitude more development than we have right now.
Yeah,
which would be 100 times 10 orders of magnitude.
And Jack Pines in the chat brings up a really good point. The modern age of invention was a very competitive time, spurring the rapid discovery, and exactly that's where my point is I believe that for whatever reason the Roman Empire grew lax and grew too comfortable, and for whatever reason stopped innovating and grew in its own way stagnant, allowing your next comment, the revolts and the Civil War, essentially the civil wars of the Roman Empire. And had that not happened, had they kept innovating, kept pushing, kept going to the next level, you would have that what we call the modern age of invention back then, and it wouldn't be innovation for the purposes of keeping control of a populace. It would be innovation for innovation's sake, which can in itself be an amazing push to improve humanity. I personally am one of those. I view the forest for the trees. I while I love people, you know, and all that. I really view, when I think of the human race, I think of long-term numbers. I think of where I'd like to see the human species, you know, in 1,000 years, in 5,000 years, in 10,000 years, and so on. I don't want the human species to just be a blip in the galactic scale where, oh, yep, they exist in another. I'd like to be a force to be reckoned with as a species in, you know, I don't mean like, oh, we're conquerors or not, you know, but like spread out so that if a catastrophe happens in one area of the galaxy, it doesn't completely wipe us out, you know. And had, in my opinion, had the Romans continued innovating and continued improving, we may already be at that point, or would have already been at that point. How's the tenses and the verbiage for this work? It's not exactly timed. Would have had been.
And we'll see, that's the thing. The thing about if the Romans had have done this is that had they industrialized, there would have been no one to oppose them. They would have been a
Exactly.
global empire, because had they industrialized, apart from their trading partners, no, you know, it would have been, basically it would have been an arms race similar to what we experienced during the Cold War, or pre-World War One and pre-World War Two, or during as such. Because now, of course, you know, until the collapse of the Byzantine Empire with the Ottoman Empire, you know, the Romans had practically no competition. You know, it was a matter of communication that they didn't expand more. The reason why the Roman Empire got split into two, and then three, and then two, and then was because they found it difficult to control the vast spans of land that the empire did. And you know, if they had and think about it this way, the telegraph wasn't invented until electricity. So had they developed electricity, and then they would have been able to communicate vast distances, no one else would have been able to oppose them. They would have had advanced technology. It would have been like the conquistadors invading, you know, Central America. You know, the weapons disparity and the ability disparity would have been huge. And then, you know, again, that comes with the discovery of gunpowder and all that type of thing, which happened. And gunpowder was discovered before the Industrial Revolution. So, you know, these things, and of course, this is all theoretical, and we can wax, you know, poetic all day about this, but you know, one thing follows another, but not necessarily in the same order. There's examples of how that, you know, different innovations around the world have been discovered by the different people around the same time. Even the invention of the radio, you know, it's accredited to one person, but it was really discovered by about 3 or 4 people, or developed by about 3 or 4 people, all around the same time. So you know, it's likely that we would be a global Roman Empire, or would have been a global Roman Empire. And as I think, I'm not sure which one of you, I think it might have been you, Sully, in the sense of, you know, we would have had intergalactic governments we'd still be speaking Latin or a variation thereof, you know, still be speaking Italian. You know, and that would be yeah, you know, at least a couple of planets in the solar system. You know, you'd have the imperial Rome of Earth, and then the Roman colonies on Mars, and the Roman colonies of Jupiter or Io, or you know, and as much as I don't like, you know, Latin's a tough language, that would be so cool.
Yeah. Now,
I venture to say that our planet wouldn't be called Earth; it would be called Rome.
Yeah. If I may, Robert brings up a point, and it is a valid point in any speculative discussion. This is Robert Lonis says, no telling what local politics would have hindered their push forward through rulers wanting to solely profit from the advancements. Yes, as with most speculation, it's so difficult to. It's what makes it difficult is when you try to then account for the potential of human greed and corruption. So in these instances, we're focused solely on the technology aspect of it, and going speculating under the assumption that in general. The human condition doesn't hinder technology, which, like I said at the beginning of all this, is it's what I believed caused it to not happen is the human condition. They got comfortable, and they stopped innovating, and very likely, human greed came into play, and well, if this doesn't help me, I'm not going to do it. The me attitude of the human condition. So really, yeah, we are discounting the human factor or the individual factor of humans, and more gearing this conversation towards how humans as a species would have pushed forward, and in this specific instance, how Romans as a society would have pushed forward.
How would it gone if the scientists ran everything and not the politicians? Look, here's an engine. Come get one.
Yeah,
And,
you can do more.
And I just wanted to again with Smart Pecker make another point. It wasn't so much the Romans that burnt the Great Library of Alexandria in Egypt, because there was about 15 different Alexandrias over the course of Roman history, right? But the Great Library of Alexandria wasn't actually deliberately burnt by the Romans. What happened was, due to the alliance between Mark Antony or Marcus Antonius and Cleopatra, who were fighting against the brother. It is speculated it was an accidental. In war, things burn, and particularly a library. And Alexandria didn't contain all the knowledge. There were scholars in there that were copying these out. There were copies in Constantinople and other great centers as well. But the libraries particularly, because they're full of paper and papyrus and all that type of thing, that it burns. So it wasn't like the Romans went, we don't like knowledge, and then stuck it in. I mean, they were their scholars themselves. There's a 50-50 argument, people saying Romans hate knowledge, but they were also stole it off everyone else. So yeah, it wasn't deliberate. The things just burn in battles. It can be a matter of someone trying to rush out of the library because the city's under attack and knocking over a lamp or something like that. It happens. But like I said, the knowledge was shared. I think the legends of the Library of Alexandria are slightly inflated, simply because it was such a tragedy and it was a center of learning. Same as the sack of Constantinople later on in the Roman history, because, like I said, Rome didn't actually fall until about 1100 with the expansion of the Ottomans. But the fall of Constantinople was such a big thing as well, because again, a lot of knowledge was lost due to the sacking of Constantinople. Same thing happened when the Rome was sacked. Et cetera, et cetera. So you have to take all these bits and pieces that we've been taught in history as separate things and put them on a timeline together, and realize that, sure, some things have been lost and irrevocably lost, but a lot of these things also happened in similar time frames as well. We think of it, so it's one of those juxtapositions of Cleopatra lived closer to us than the building of the pyramids. And people think, oh yeah, ancient Egypt, Cleopatra, pyramids.
I love that.
They don't
I love
realize they don't realize pyramids, long period of time. Cleopatra, us, you know, Cleopatra.
Here's
Cleopatra lived 1,500 years ago.
Yeah, on that with Cleopatra, I love that timeline analogy thing, or that timeline realization thing, because what that means, and it's so amazing. I love time. Is that speculatively, Cleopatra as a ruler probably had an advisor that was, suggesting archaeological digs to find out what the heck was going on with these, giant pyramid things. Like much like we are today. Let's figure out what they're doing in Göbekli Tepe. Let's find out what's going on over there, at Machu Picchu. They're probably like, well, there's these giant structures. They've always been here. Let's find out why. It's like,
and here's a spin out that will bring everything back in full circle. Had the hero's engine been taken seriously, Cleopatra would have lived during a time where steam engines were possible. She did live during a time where steam engines were possible.
Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to ask. Thomas just asked if we had answered his question about lead and copper. Do either of you know what that question is?
Yes, I do. I can pull it up right quick. I have it tagged. It is. Thomas Goodemuth asks, question for getting lead out of copper. If you melt it with lead, or if you melt it with the lead, will the lead settle to the bottom or just get mixed in with the copper? The question was regarding the coppersmiths and the lead that was found in everything in Pompeii.
Okay, the lead is removed from copper by cupellation. So you take a it's called a cupola, which is basically like a crucible, only it's kind of bowl shaped or whatever, and it's made from bone ash. So you take bone ash and press it into this cupola, and you put the copper in there and heat it till it's molten, and the lead will be absorbed by the bone ash. That's how, when you do precious metal recovery, and a lot of times you get a lot of lead, and you'll get this ingot or a dory bar, and in order to get the lead out, you cupola it. So you put it in a bone ash bowl and heat it up, and it removes all the lead. And they did not. It's to them it was an unnecessary process because they had no idea that the lead was harmful, and it was just. I mean, it would have been an unnecessary expenditure. So there was no reason to do that. But they did have the technology at the time to do it. The technology to remove lead from a metal was well known. It's probably about as far back as 4000 BC. So that's how it's done, and they just probably would not have done it because there was no need.
Yeah, I mean, they use lead pipes. Why would they think it's harmful?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Heck, we use lead paint, and those chips are delicious.
Exactly. We use lead in petrols. And comparatively speaking, right? It was only up until the 1980s where lead was banned across the world and use in fossil fuels and paints and all that type of thing. So we as a society, Western society, up until the 80s, we were getting towards comparable levels of lead contamination as they had towards the mid to late Roman Empire. So, and I'm saying comparable because we weren't exactly, they did have a lot more lead in their stuff, but we had comparable levels. So, it's like, it's lead's harmful over a long period of time. We started to notice it because we're now living longer. So, and that's all because of the Industrial Revolution.
I want to point out, I was a plumber, in 98, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002. I was a plumber, and back then you didn't use lead solder in water lines. You could use lead solder in DWV copper, drain waste vent. We also used it in pouring a Babbitt and lead seals in cast iron joints and sewer lines. And so there was two uses for lead right there. And then we also used when you had to test a gas line, you used a mercury gauge. And I mean, you just go down to the plumbing if you knocked it over in the truck or whatever because it's open at the top. And you spilled your mercury, you could just go down to the plumbing supply house and get a new vial of mercury to refill your mercury gauge. Now, I've been out of plumbing for a couple decades, and so now, on the other hand, you really can't. The only thing you can find lead solder for is for electrical, for soldering electrical bits. It basically does not exist in plumbing anymore. Even as far as like doing pouring a lead seal on cast iron. Nowadays they got a rubber gasket that goes in there. You just slide it in the open end of the bell. You grease it up and you slide the other one in. There's no need to mess with Babbitt and lead. And so even when I was plumbing 20 years ago, lead was still. I mean, I still used it, not necessarily on a daily basis, but at least weekly. I would have to use lead for one thing or another on a weekly basis. And now 20 years later, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a plumber that uses lead at all. Unless it's just like a small repair job where it's easier just to pour this lead seal than it is to disassemble the whole thing and pop in a rubber gasket. And then as far as mercury gauges go, yeah, they don't even use those anymore. There's a whole different setup for checking for loss of pressure in a gas line. I don't know what it is, but I think it's just a regular pressure gauge. I'm not really sure. Maybe they use water. I don't know, but I do know that the plumbing supply house does not sell mercury gauges or the mercury that goes in them anymore.
Which, if I may, that whole topic of lead, going back to it, and this is a metal show as it stands, brings another speculative branch of what we're talking about. Aside from the hero wheel and the steam engine, how do you think Roman society would have advanced had they discovered the shortcomings, the health concerns of lead earlier and made an effort to switch from using lead pipes to something else, reducing their lead intake?
Adam, you're muted.
You're still muted. It's a button. There you go.
Okay. Yep. No, I got it. Sorry. I was looking at the YouTube because I'm up on YouTube. I'm trying to click on the box to get myself muted. Now, to answer that about the lead pipes and stuff like that, I personally don't believe it would have changed much. Like I said before, we only stopped using leads in comparable levels in the 80s. We still use lead into the 2000s for certain things. Okay, not so much things that we had bodily or contact with, but there's still a lot of lead in our environment. Now, and that was aerosolized and all sorts. So we also live longer because of the advancements in medical technology, because of World War I and World War II and the Industrial Revolution. So at the point where they started, I think that the trajectory of the lead would have been equivalent in the sense of they would have gone and Industrial Revolution started. I mean, we used iron pipes and all that type of thing simply because iron was more readily available in the Western society during the Industrial Revolution. Prior to that, indoor plumbing wasn't a thing. The fact that Romans had indoor plumbing was already more advanced than, most of Europe in the 1700s. So, it wasn't until after that, when iron became more common, that we started using iron and terracotta pipes to create indoor plumbing. So yeah, sure, the Romans might have had slightly higher lead interaction, but as they moved it through, had they had their Industrial Revolution, as they moved through that, they would have also came to the same
Conclusion.
kind of conclusions as we did, maybe earlier as their standard of living increased and realized, hang on, something's making our people die early or get sick early, and eventually it would have been discovered. Again, this was a society that had plastic surgery, remedial surgeries. They had birth control, all these types of things. Nearly 2,000 years before they were rediscovered for modern Western society. I think it would have been this lead poisoning, heavy metal poisoning would have been something that would have been discovered and dealt with on a comparable time frame.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that I mean, you can look back and you can be like, well, what about this? There's no way they would have figured this out or that out, or well, we did. I mean, and one could argue that there are all sorts of bits of technology that spurred on the next era of innovation, etc. And one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. But at the end of the day, we're just talking about starting this process. The beginning of this process is, basically the invention of the steam engine, which is basically what kicked off. I mean, you can go a little bit deeper on that, but basically kicked off the Industrial Revolution, not the discovery of, but the invention of. And if that had occurred, all of the rest of the discoveries may have come in a very similar timeline. I mean, and that's it. So if you apply our timeline of invention to 2 millennia ago, I mean, it just gives me goosebumps to think of what civilization would look like today if it indeed existed at all. I mean, it's entirely possible that we could have wiped ourselves out with some stupid idea.
yeah,
And to tie this back into what we we're talking about before about moving moving lead out of copper, right? The only reason we did that was to make it more pure. If they were using copper copper with the lead inclusions in ancient Rome, until they discovered the benefit of making copper more pure. If they started making copper pipes that had traces of lead in it, it wouldn't have made that much of a difference to them. So yeah, again, it's that equivalency in the sense of we made pure copper because we could make pure copper. That pure using and making pure copper for Western society didn't come until after we could make pure iron and raw iron and then steel, and it was kind of like, hey, pure copper is easy to use and easy to work, and it's a better quality, and so we can get more money for it, and then so on. Same as gold. Gold, we make 9-carat gold and 18-carat gold wasn't something that, and 24-carat gold wasn't something that really existed back in ancient times because it was gold or it was silver. They didn't have these definitions because when you smelted the gold, sorry,
or electrum. Electrum is the 50-50 mix of silver and gold, but it looks like silver. That's only softer and heavier.
Yeah. So, and that's what I'm saying. So, you had gold, silver, or electrum, for example, but it was they didn't have these different qualities and quantities of such because it was, they got what they got. If it looked like gold and it acted like gold, it was gold or aurum. What was the purity? And again, that wasn't and that comes back to what is it? The crown, the story of the crown, and how we worked out volume. The crown,
water displacement.
Water displacement, but that didn't happen until I think it was the end of the Middle Ages, 1300 BC. Well, that's how the story goes. No, AD, sorry, 12 or 1300 Common Era, because the king wanted to work out exactly how much gold this goldsmith was skimming, So, but they had to know the how much gold weighed and so on and so forth, because if you were mixing, silver's a cheaper metal. If you're mixing in silver with gold, it takes up the volume, it takes up the size, but gold's more valuable. So yeah, again, we only have the purity of metals because we can. There are certain advantages to it, but when you're towards the beginning of things, that purity wasn't as necessary. That's the reason why, a lot of things were made from iron. We folded the iron, all those slag inclusions and stuff like that. And the reason why we say mild steel now is better than raw iron was. So yeah. And as Thomas, the difference between white gold and yellow gold is probably best answered by Sully. I do know the answer, but it's probably best answered by Sully.
Yeah,
I just said the color.
The color of gold is determined by its alloying component. So rose gold is alloyed with copper. It's going to be 14 karat almost always, which is 50-50. Kevin actually would know this better because he's the gold guy. But white gold would be alloyed with silver. So you got yellow gold, which is typically pure. Not pure, but it's more gold-ish. I don't know. There might be an alloy in there. I'm not sure of. I don't know, but I do know that the rose gold is alloyed with copper and white gold is alloyed with silver.
I will say this. We do have Kevin in. He always listens. So if Kevin wants to correct or confirm, feel free to unmute yourself and share knowledge.
Yeah, I did look into that briefly when I lived up by the Black Hills, and I was wondering about the Black Hills gold thing, like if they actually mined gold in those colors and then combined it together. But then I found out now they just make the different alloys there and sell it as a novelty item.
Yeah, and I was going to say I do sometimes white gold can actually lose its white color.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much that it's plated, but it can be. It's kind of like because it's mixed with silver or alloyed with rhodium and nickel. It can sometimes lose that on the surface and go back to being like regular gold, and sometimes you have to send it back in to get that treatment done to it again. I learned that from when I in my early years when I was a jewelry salesman at a jewelry retailer here in Australia. So yeah, but again, it's one of those things that rose gold, for example, that was something that probably existed in ancient Rome because why not? They mix copper with everything. Copper and tin, and brass is copper and tin and something else as well. I think brass is near on exactly the same as bronze, except different levels.
All right, so I was corrected. Nickel is the alloy in white gold. So maybe perhaps silver is the alloy in yellow gold to bring the purity down.
Yeah, that's true.
You got 8 karat gold, 10 karat gold, 14 karat gold, 18, and then 24 is pure. Well, all of those other lower purities still come in yellow gold. I mean, primarily, and I'm pretty sure Black Hills gold, which is the multicolored whatever. I think it's almost always 14 karat, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, and yeah, but yeah, so. It's interesting. Like I said, purity is something that is a relative purity in metals, I should say. Purity in metals is something that's only relatively modern.
I'm sorry, guys.
I'm gonna get Andrew tated for that fucking comment. I can see it happening.
I see you guys read my chat.
We all read that at the same time.
I can't say that on YouTube.
Oh boy. Anyway, so
I'm sorry to derail.
So guys, that's as you can see, guys, we've gone for nearly 2 hours on today's show, and that's
we
just
told you
simply
we would.
We told you we would, but that's because at the last hour and 15 minutes at least has been on this speculation of what could have happened with industrialized Rome, and this is on the back of us talking, a month ago for several hours and speculating and getting excited and all sorts of stuff. So don't forget, guys, the topic, the challenge of the month. If you've got anything, this is your last week to kind of get it in, to get recognized.
We will point it out if somebody puts it up a couple months from now. We will put it out there, during one of the shows.
But for next week's show, it'll be another one of our tied over shows, because it's towards the end of the month. So it's your chance to, if you've done anything with the make something Roman, don't email it into us at impracticalblacksmith@gmail.com, or send it into the topic of hashtag top of the week in the forward chat. We have left the links to that in the chat a couple of times. It will also be included in our description. But we'd really like to see what you've done, if you've done anything, of course. Throw it onto one of our send it to Yamez or Alex in their Instagrams. And tag Impractical Blacksmiths. Just simply because we're really keen to see what you've done, if you've done anything. And of course we go back to the good old life of Brian. Bloody Romans, good riddance. What have they ever done for us? So that does bring us to the end of the topic of the week. I've kind of work myself into a wall here, Yamas. I'm going to hand it back over to you for a second.
All right, yeah. So yeah. As for that, now, full disclosure, as much research and as much takes on the Roman Empire as there is, not just with what we're doing, but in general, it's a massive, massive resource or research pool. I will be perfectly candid. I'm not a massive fan of, the Roman Empire compared to other eras and empires that are out there. Not that I don't like it. It's just that there's so much. I get so bogged down. I can't wait for some of the other stuff that we're going to talk about. And I don't believe that we've, as a group, picked our next era or civilization topic yet. We'll discuss that after the show here. And when we do decide on one, we'll either announce it as a post in the comment section for the channel, or me and Alex will announce it next week during next week's show. With all of that being said, I am still super looking forward to what's to come this year. I really hope you guys are enjoying this. I'm having a blast with it. And as always, if you have any ideas to include, post it in the topic of the week in Discord, or email us at impracticalblacksmiths@gmail, or hit any of us up on the socials. But yeah, so with all that, are we about ready to hit our final thoughts?
I think so.
All right. I have a good one. That's not my usual. Thank you.
I'll go first. That way, everything works out here. So, as with most things, necessity is the mother of invention. You don't need something until you need something done. And I know in several occasions I've been going, how can I do this? Okay, I'll just wrap this, and I just build something that gets done what I need done. I love doing that. But because the Roman Empire may not have industrialized because of lack of necessity. But don't let that be the reason that you don't try to innovate for yourself. So if you're interested in Roman history at all, I really do recommend hitting the guy's channel that's tagged in the chat there. It's an absolute plethora of fascinating topics, including the topic that we talked about today, which is what would have happened had Rome industrialized. I really did enjoy that video. So if you guys want to give that guy a sub, check it out if you're interested in Rome at all. If not, hey, maybe this is all you need. But in any case, get out to your shop, innovate, build something, and start the next revolution. See y'all next week.
So my final thoughts, very similar lines. I think one of the things that we should do, not only as individuals but as a society, is look back. You know, those who forget the mistakes of the past are doomed to repeat them. You know, Rome as a civilization, as a people, as an empire, stagnated and didn't innovate, and they didn't move forward. And we as blacksmiths only have to look back 100 years ago where, you know, I was only talking to one of my friends about this the other day. Blacksmiths, motor mechanics, boiler makers, fitter and turners, tool makers, they all are all trades that directly descend from blacksmiths. Tire fitters. These are things that blacksmiths did not even 100 years ago. But you know, we now look at them. Specialization has you know, turned blacksmiths into, you know, and I do this in inverted commas, the dying trade, where a lot of the descendants of blacksmithing are still integral parts of society. But you know, but that happened through innovation. It was blacksmiths that created these things and developed these things and created these trades. So with it, you know, we should always keep an eye on the past to make sure that we're not doomed to repeat the same mistakes. And so, yeah, you know, get out there. Think of something that, you know, you might have done 100 times, 1,000 times, and maybe see if there's another way to do it. You know, there's more than one way to skin a cat. We'll skin the cat a different way. See if it's, you know, see if it's some way better. On that note, yeah, get out there, try and skin that cat. Not literally, of course. And yeah, on that note, so thanks for joining us tonight, everyone, or this morning. It's been great. We have loved this topic. I have found it absolutely fantastic. I love speculating about what it could have, would have, should have. Even though it never, you know, never happened. It's always fun to speculate of where we would be now if it had. So, but on that note, you can find Yamas at Island Metal Forge on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. You can find Alex at Transcendental Artist Studios on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can find me, Adam, at Speargrass Forge on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. If you have any suggestions for Tool of the Week, Metal of the Week, or Civilization of the Month, or any other topic, you can leave it under the hashtag Metal of the Week on the YouTube community chat in our Discord, or you can email us at impracticalblacksmith@gmail.com. If you have found us on Anchor, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, and Google Podcasts, or any other of the podcast providers that we upload on. We generally upload every Wednesday or Thursday, or you can join us live every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the US, and that's currently 12:30 a.m. Australian Central Standard Time on a Monday morning. But check that against your local time, and that's at the Isle Metal Forge YouTube channel. Finally, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and leave a star rating on the podcast if you can. We really appreciate your support. It goes a long way into basically motivating us to keep doing this, even though we do it without anyone listening or watching. And finally, Yamas, over to you for your final thoughts. Oh, it looks like Sully wants to say something, so I'll give it back to Sully before it goes to you.
I may be just a hair too late, but I was going to say bye, Kevin's mom. That's it.
Yes. I honestly forgot what I was going to say. My brain isn't working. You know, pretty much, you know, if you have the capability, and as a human you do what you can to innovate. Do what you can to improve, if not your own life, improve the lives of those around you. And if you innovate hard enough, you might be able to improve the lives of humanity itself as a species. And with that, you know, huge thank you to you, the audience, both the watchers that tune in live on Sundays and to those who are listening on podcast or watching after the fact. You know, we love you, you know, and a huge thank you to my co-hosts and friends, Adam and Alex. I could not do this without them. I truly would be, just a feather in the wind without them. With that small recap of my own personal stuff for today, as any of you who may have missed the beginning of the show, I am not feeling very well. I am at the very start of a cold. So with that and the constant rain that's happening today, I am very leaning heavily towards not going out to my shop for my evening show. If I go live today, I may be sitting here on the couch and just kind of chit-chatting. However, it's, hurting my throat, so it may not be. So I apologize for that. I do try to keep a schedule, but there's that. You guys all have a wonderful day. Just round of applause all around. You guys are all amazing. And I hope to see you all here next week, where I believe our topic just for next week is still TBD. We were waiting on a little bit of information from an outside source, and depending on what happens with that is what our topic is going to be. So, yeah, with all of that, you guys have a wonderful day. Be safe and be innovative. All right. Bye now, everybody.